crises, yet opportunities that we've run into. I just wanted to talk about two things that are working at the enterprise level within IT, and then Scott's going to talk about a number of things that affect you directly as students. The first one I want to talk to you about is a project that we have going on implementing a new cloud-based enterprise data warehouse. And when I say enterprise, I'm talking across the entire institution. So we're talking about data, including all of your student data from CASIS, everything you have from the beginning when you were prospective students all the way through graduation, and then from becoming a graduate level student all the way through graduation, we hope. And we are also including finance. Eventually, we're going to include human resource information, research information, housing and dining, facilities, student life. There are whole lots of pools of data that sit in all these disparate systems across campus. And right now, if you ask for data for something, 9 times out of 10, you'll get an answer in the form of an Excel spreadsheet 2 to 6 weeks later. And that's not how the way it's supposed to be working, especially in this day and age of technology. So we are implementing the top of the line data warehouse called Snowflake. We have a consultant helping us implement it. And the first two focuses are going to be on strategic enrollment management. So that's our trying to grow the enrollment capabilities here on campus. And this is a project, this is a plan that we've been working on now for a few years, but we finally have been able to afford and move forward with the project. So we're just beginning the implementation. It's a partnership between information technology, institutional research. This is kind of the reporting arm. But we also have strategic enrollment management folks, so the registrar, financial aid, admissions are a part of this. But we also are doing a focus on finance as well, which is kind of an antiquated system. So we're trying to fix the data issues there. Right now, we're working on what I call the 9 months of the iceberg under the level of water, so people don't get to see all the cool stuff yet because we got to implement it and we got to move data into it. After that's done, which should be about summer, then we're going to start working on some cool things, analytics and dashboards and those types of things. Then we make the plan for all the rest of the data we want to bring into the system and make available to folks. So more to come on that one. We just started kicking this off about 5 weeks ago. So we still got a long ways to go. But to me, I'm a data geek, so it's a fun project for me. The other one I want to talk about, and this is specific to Manhattan campus, and we have some infrastructure issues, as I'm sure some of you know, if you try getting onto wireless in some of the buildings or even plugging into hardwired ports in some of the buildings across campus. We have some struggles that I inherited when I got here, so we are trying to resolve those. I have to say, we've had budget challenges, as you all know, as students over the last few years, but we've had more one-time monies in the last couple of years through stimulus dollars because of COVID. State of Kansas has made some monies available for technology, a few other funding sources like that, where we're actually able to start making some changes. So the data warehouse is one of those. Well, the other one is trying to fix this infrastructure issue, the IT infrastructure issue here at the Manhattan campus. So you probably, if you have been here for more than a year, you may have already noticed we've had significant increases to outdoor wireless, like Bosco Plaza outside here. And we're trying to align with the orientation pathway that they take students on across campus so that where those folks stop, we have key areas outside on the wireless. We're just starting to work on the indoor components of some of the buildings, and hopefully we'll be able to bring it up to speed where it should have been 5 years ago. And what we want to do is get it to the point where we never are out of date again, where we have a refresh plan and we can keep on the front end of this from now on, instead of having this big hole that we need to fill in. So more to come on that. Keep in mind with both of these projects, They're recurring costs, and I have one-time money to do it, but we're doing it in such a way that hopefully I'll have paid for the next 2 or 3 years. That will give us an opportunity to be able to figure out how to fund the recurring bill that's going to come due in a few years. So we do have a plan for that. Our eyes are wide open as we move forward. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Scott.
Thank you. And to play on some infrastructure stuff for a bit, one of the things that is happening that directly impacts students at the infrastructure level is classroom improvements, right? We're always making classroom improvements, both sort of at the facilities level, right? Replacing old chairs or taking care of peeling paint type stuff that you'll see in some of these rooms. But that's gotten increased focus. Some of these stimulus dollars and the state money to help make improvements there that, again, as you all know as well as anyone, that's been deferred around K-State, especially in certain areas, certain buildings. And it's come so much to the focus that even the foundation is fundraising for classroom improvements now, and they were able to fundraise for 5 classroom improvements, many hundreds of thousands of dollars to address 5 of the biggest need classrooms like Weber 123, if anybody have ever been in there lately, peeling paint and all. So some of these rooms are getting increased attention now from outside sources as well. So one of the things that IT is going to be able to do in cooperation with the university facilities and the foundation is hopefully increase the amount of rooms that we're able to tackle each year and make those improvements. And these are, and that leads me to my next sort of infrastructure idea. These improvements are the kinds of things that need to be driven by how you learn and how the instructors are teaching, right? A lot of the technology in the rooms now have been there for a long time, and so teachers adapt their teaching to what's there, right? And that's not how it's supposed to work, right? That they should be able to teach in the ways that they want, interact with you all in the ways that they need to, improve. We've all learned from COVID about how things can be different with interactions at the classroom level, and so those are things that we need to support. And we can't do that by just having the same old technology there and hoping that they'll force fit their new methods into that. So the pedagogy has to drive that. And the provost has created a new committee that'll be seated here at the end of the year, maybe at the beginning of next year. It's made up of representatives from around campus, and it's focused on academic technology recommendations, classroom level, software level, decisions about how it's utilized. I'll bring another example from the software side, something like Top Hat or iClicker, where there's fees on you all to pay, and you pay a subscription fee, and it might get barely used in some classes and really heavily used over here. Those are the kind of things that need to be made strategic decisions on and deliberate choices about those fees that fall to you all as students. And if we're going to do that, then we darn well better make good use of them across your curriculum, across your experience at K-State. So this committee has multiple students on it. Zach Rankin, the technology chair from your current leadership, is on there. There we go. Zach's right over there. I hadn't seen you yet. Sorry. And
seeing you in a little box.
Right. And I'm reading Stacia Mendoza and Parker Larson are 2 other students that are appointed to that. And with their Salina representative, Olathe representatives, it's made up of mostly faculty. And the goal is to create recommendations for the CIO and for the provost. These are things that need to happen to improve the student learning experience and the teaching interactions at K-State. So that's really happening, and I say that in that way because it's been talked about for a long time, but now all the pieces of the puzzle are in place, and K-State's really going to be able to make progress on those kinds of room improvements. Another one I really want to talk about is the Sunderland Foundation Innovation Lab. How many people are familiar with the Innovation Lab over in the library? Awesome. I'm super glad to hear that. So again, the university got a really generous investment from the Sunderland Foundation, and we were able to create that lab over there. And it's proven to be something that is meeting the goals of students, helping people create projects in different ways.
The speaker's time has expired.
Thank you.
Chair Long,
I move to extend the speaker's time by 5 minutes.
any objections? You have 5 more minutes.
Thank you. So quickly, things that are happening in Sunderland that impact you. We've increased the hours. It was 8 to 5, now it's 8 to 8. We're still not able to be open on the weekends yet, but we're working on increasing our staffing and resources to do that. But now it's available for a bit more option. We've increased the 3D printing and some of the laser cutting and some of the sort of crafty type tools. We found over the Halloween time, for example, a lot of students were coming in building costumes and cosplay things to get ready for all the conventions coming up this fall. So we're trying to increase that. We're getting all new iMacs and several updates to our computers. Creative Cloud's on there for free, lots of software that you can come use, 3D development engines, big visualization stuff, and we're going to continue to grow the media creation. That's the other thing that's been heavily used. One-button recording studios. There's a full video production studio. There's a full audio production studio where you can isolate instruments from speakers. You can record yourself recording a podcast, all that kind of stuff. So those tools are there for you for not only student assignment use, but for your personal use. Student Duo. You guys know about multi-factor authentication? Woohoo! Gary's like, data warehousing is cool. Well, multi-factor authentication is cool too. So,
Well, not getting hacked.
exactly. So, I want to make sure you know that multi-factor authentication is coming for students. It's coming to all the systems that you want to be protected, like your financial aid systems and things like that, but we're not going to enable it on Canvas. We don't want to create an additional stress point when you're trying to submit a last-minute assignment or get into a test in the classroom. So we're going to keep it off Canvas for now. That's a decision that will be revisited over time as we mature. But the thing that you maybe want to know right now is we're still in an opt-in period. Between now and January, you're in an opt-in period, and we're giving away Apple AirPods. So if you go to the IT homepage, ksu.edu/IT, you'll see a button on there, Duo for Students. And if you opt in now before January, you're entered into winning one of those 12 sets of AirPods. So good chance to opt in now, get comfortable with it before next semester. It's going to become required on February 14th. So on February 14th, it will become required. If you have not opted in by then, you'll have 2 weeks as students to opt in, get yourself set up, and be using it. So check out that IT homepage.
And no iPods.
Yeah, and after that, we're not giving away any prizes or anything. Finally, the kiosk. There's a laptop kiosk that was paid for with SGA voted funds at the beginning of COVID, and your executive leadership's been doing some talking about that, but it's end of life, and we'd love your feedback. We maintain it, us in the library, IT in the library, maintain that. It's on the first floor of the library. It gets about 17 checkouts a week at this point, which is actually, that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's quite a bit in the scheme of things. So it's got value, but it's going to cost about $50,000 to reinvest new equipment in it. And so that's something, I just want to share that. That's something that leadership is already talking about, but because it's an SGA funded thing, it's either going to sunset gracefully, we'll just end out those lives, we'll keep checking them out until they're all dead, or we'll get to a chance to replace it. We have equipment checkout, so it's diminished its use, right? You can go to equipment checkout and grab laptops left and right.
So we're just going to close our part of it and get to the end of our 5 minutes and hopefully have an extension so we can let you ask questions. I do want to point out the Duo was something you all requested last time we were here. And we said, there's money involved. Well, because of some of these one-time funds, we figured out how to fund that. So that's why we're making it available to you. I do want to remind you that we have a strategic planning process for the institution going on. You probably saw a web survey come out to you all. Hope you took advantage of doing that. There will be other opportunities for input and feedback throughout the next few months. Please, please, please participate in that. We want student feedback on that. So there was one other thing that we're supposed to Oh, no, I think that's it. I'm going to go ahead right now before we get kicked out for our timeline again. I am at gprat@ksu.edu.
And my EID is Curtin, like hangs on your windows, CURTAIN. And I'm here to take your direct feedback, literally. So please, truly feel free to email me. I'm frustrated in the middle of the night. I want to hear it.
I'll give you a cell number so you can call him in the middle of the night. Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. So we stand open for questions if we have time for that.
Yeah, are there any questions? Chair Thomas.
Yeah, do you guys know where you got the initial funding? Which committee you got it from?
For what?
For
that
the
kiosk.
laptop card.
I guess I don't know what part of SGA that came from, but surely we can figure that out. I have the original agreements in my office, so surely it says in there somewhere, right?
I'm looking at.
Blake, are you saying you know?
Blake is saying student-centered tuition enhancements. SCTE is where that money came from. Are there any further questions? Yeah, Senator Broughton.
How does two-factor authentication affect like connecting to the computing cluster here. So is that going to be implemented into that as well?
Great question. So let me answer that in a mildly technical way and then add to that. Two-factor authentication is going to be on everything that also uses single sign-on. So where you see the K-State purple, put your EID and password, that's single sign-on, and that's sort of a system, and that allows you into multiple things. So anywhere you see that kind of sign-on. But there are tons of systems at K-State where you sign directly into said system. You don't see that sign-on page. Those will not.
So when you're saying computer cluster, there are a number of those across campus. So I probably need a more, if you're talking Beowulf on research, I don't believe they go through single sign-on, and so it won't be there. There are various department clusters that exist as well. They probably will not be there because they are not currently behind single
I know like the CDA, the College of Business one won't be behind that, the computing space there for Python and Tableau and stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Caucus Leader Bellamy.
Yeah, so were we seeing any like substantial rates of like break-ins to accounts before Duo was implemented, especially for faculty?
Well, I can tell you we've had significant numbers of break-ins to accounts before we implemented Duo for faculty and staff. I will tell you, to me, the best sales pitch for Duo is when we did it in groups across campus when we put it in for staff and faculty, usually those who are kind of geographically in the same area. And our help desk was getting a call from a faculty member who is really mad because they kept having their Duo notification go off. And they finally called the help desk and said, "Damn it, I want out of this thing. It's driving me crazy and I can't keep it." And they said, "It's working. That means your account has been hacked and somebody's trying to get into it." And they were like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." So it really has made a significant difference. I will tell you that the other things made a significant difference is cybersecurity training. And before you go there, no, we don't have that available for students who aren't staff members as well. Again, it's a cost thing, and we'll see what we can do to adjust that as well. We're looking at other things, and I'm going to go ahead and share this because this is something that we are working on and just had a project approved to move forward today. And you'll know the white pages that you can get to on our main website. You put in a person's name, and then it has student and staff. Most students, it's just email, but for staff and faculty, it's email and phone number. That's not appropriate for, our hackers just go and strip all of those out. And how many people there have gotten an email saying, "Hey, you can work from home and watch Netflix for $400 a week"? Okay, that's actually somebody trying to get your credentials. So please don't click on that. Unless you get a job for $400 a week for sitting there, I'd love to know about it. I'll take it. But those would stop if we didn't give people access to everybody's emails. So what we're planning on doing is putting student information behind single sign-on. So you would have to log in and do SSO to get to student information. Nobody on the outside would get student information at all. Staff and faculty, what we would do is say, "Do you want to contact this person? Click here." And it has a form they would fill out with the name, their email address, and the message. And then the recipient would get an opportunity to decide whether they're going to share that. So that we expect to make another major drastic dent in the spam that you're getting. So.
Yeah, intern coordinator Lynn.
Do you know approximately like how many unique individuals check out the laptops like per year from the library?
I can get some information off the top of my head, not particularly, but anecdotally from the equipment checkout, from the equipment checkout desk, which is in Sunderland, by the way, cameras and laptops and all that stuff. We have this last 2 semesters, sort of post-COVID, we'd say, we've gotten about 350 unique checkouts. Across, not just laptops though, sort of across all that. From the kiosk, unique wise, it's I don't remember. Like I said, I have to look up numbers, and I'll be happy to share it back. But it's pretty small. It seems to be sort of a subset of the student body that finds that to be the useful option.
Free versus charge, basically.
Right.
Caucus Leader Kidd.
Yeah, thanks for joining us tonight. So I took some notes the last time you were here and comparing it to this time. So One thing that was brought up last time in February was about the decentralization of IT systems and staff and everything too. Are there any updates towards centralizing that, or any updates towards trying to get everyone on the same page, or?
I can give you an update on, no, it hasn't been done. We have been working on consolidating specific types of things. And great example is proximity cards. If you have to get into multiple buildings and, housing and dining and your dorms and all of that, you may, yeah, exactly, you may actually have multiple proximity cards. We have 15 different proximity card systems. We actually have gotten the approval from the president and president's cabinet. We are leading an initiative to resolve that. We aren't there yet, but we have a task force that's working on a recommendation to do it. And hopefully we'll be able to get some funding from some of these one-time funds going forward to help achieve that. I will tell you, and this is again going back as a nod for the institutional strategic plan, I will tell you the consultants did an update of status of what they've heard so far in their listening sessions. And they've heard from, 1,500 people already. They've had, I can't remember how many they said at our IT one this afternoon, but like 75 or something. Yeah, different sessions and key stakeholder interviews and all of that. The consultants gave us a status and said, these are just based on opinion at this point. These aren't best practices. These aren't the recommendations going forward yet, but we have 5-6 categories of challenges that we see across campus. The second level priority was processes, systems, and facilities or infrastructure. And every one of those hit the things you're talking about, Marcus. So I will tell you that they have actually talked about streamlining so we can start dealing with those duplication of systems and those types of things. I don't know specifically what they are going to be yet. The strategic plan will help guide us on what those would look like. That's due to be completed sometime in late spring, summer, and take effect in the next academic year. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to stand here next time around and say, hey, we have specific plans for that action. So, but thank you for bringing that up, because that one's near and dear to my heart. When you have 5 CRMs and, so many 50 budgeting systems, and so on and so forth, it gives me a facial tick because it's a major security thing. It's easier when we're dealing with one centralized system. So.
Senator Hubenig.
I love that you're working on fixing the Wi-Fi, especially in buildings. Is there a way for us to report where there are bad spaces in buildings?
I'm going to give you that email again, gpratt@ksu.edu. I'll make sure the right people get it. Okay, we have a plan. We're developing. We are trying to work with facilities and some of their beautification efforts and building renovations. And we don't want to put some in a building that may be demoed, which now we're talking about because we got some money from the state to demo some older buildings. And so what we want to do is make sure we're smart about it. Or if they're renovating a building, like I believe, cross your fingers, Call Hall and Weber Hall and some of those ones are going to be renovated. Well, I don't want to put stuff in there yet until they get in there and start the renovation, because I don't want it to get all torn out again. So we got to work with the capital planning or the construction planning process. But we absolutely, please don't hesitate to send it to me, okay?
If I may. We did have, and I'm not sure if it made it to TDX, we had a dead spot reporting form that had all building locations. You could just pick a location and stuff. So I'll double check and send the URL back to be distributed if we also have that. But otherwise, yeah, just email us. We will make sure.
Any further questions? Chair Phillips.
Yeah, thank you both so much for coming out today. I know you mentioned that a lot of those one-time funds have been used for outdoor Wi-Fi as well as some of the dual-factor authentication. Are there any other things that funding's been used for?
It also is funding the enterprise data warehouse. It is a number of security systems that we're putting in place as well. Keep in mind, we have different pools of one-time funds that we're using. The library insurance was one of those. We finally settled that, yay, after 2.5, 3 years. And so once we got that, of course we were buying things, and we actually used a lot of that to move the old, antiquated servers that were in the data center that had Niagara Falls pouring over them. We actually moved 85% of those systems up to the cloud, AWS. We did that a couple years ago. We did it in a matter of months. Most institutions, when they move to the cloud, take a decade or longer. We actually won a national award for that one. So I have to say that was a pretty good investment, because now I can count on those systems being always up to date and available, and not have to worry about things being shut down because we have servers that are underwater. So I'm feeling really good about that investment. We are using some of it to do the last 15% we're keeping on-prem data centers. That one actually hadn't been completed yet because a variety of things, COVID, supply chain issues, those types of things. We have all the equipment now. It is being installed, and we're splitting our on-prem data center between the BayoCat facility, which is the research cluster that I think you were referring to earlier, over in the College College of Engineering, and KU. And keep in mind, even though KU's in Lawrence, it still can be considered on-prem, because we're basically sharing the load between those. So if something happens in either area, it'll be able to fail over to the other side. Keep in mind, KU is what saved our bacon on the library issue, because that's where our backups were. So having off-premise storage really helped us in that. I will tell you that we've also put in other security systems. The stimulus dollars helped fund a lot of the enterprise data warehouse, the infrastructure, and some of those security things. And the state of Kansas, through last year's legislation that KBOR put in, and KBOR, there were $20 million in IT funds that were distributed amongst the KBOR institutions. So we received about just under $5 million, about $4.5 million worth of that $20 million. And that's funding a lot of our infrastructure stuff, as well as some stimulus dollars for that. But it's also going to fund some other security related things, systems that will help us monitor traffic and make sure if there's something funky going on out there. It's hard for a human to actually see some of these things happen as fast as some of the AI-based systems that are out there. So that's what our next set of dollars that we just received will be working towards. We also worked with KBOR to request the same thing next time around. So cross your fingers it makes it through all the way to the end like this one did. I wasn't betting anything was going to make it through, and it all made it through. So hopefully this next legislative session will have the same thing and additional money to put towards some of these things.
I would add that like a lot of the equipment that we brought into the classrooms to support hybrid and remote delivery during COVID, cameras and microphone systems, also came from when we put about 700 cameras and almost 1,000 microphone systems in spaces across campus at the beginning of COVID. And again, those are things that ultimately will end of life. And with that, we have to think about what the next thing is. It doesn't make sense to just stick another fresh microphone in another camera.
The online and hybrid
It made it happen. And now we've got to look to what's next and figure out how to fund that.
Okay, awesome. Caucus Leader Kidd?
Yeah, sorry, I have one more question. So in general, where we are as an institution, how does that compare to some of our other Big 12 schools or just other comparable universities that have our same size and workforce related to IT technology?
That is a fantastic question. I will tell you, compared to our in-state institutions, we're leading the game on a lot of these things. We actually have institutions reaching out to us all the time from our Kansas counterparts, if you will. I also will say that for the most part, within Big 12 schools, we have a number of leadership things. We've created a security compliance-based system to support research because research wasn't going to get funding from federal agencies unless we were able to do this. A lot of other institutions took the ostrich approach to crisis management, didn't do anything, and we are still hearing, we implemented this 2.5 years ago and won another national award for that one, yay. And I can tell you some of these institutions that didn't do anything have been reaching out to us now for the last 2.5 years. My Chief Operating Officer, Chad Courier, who is the IT lead on that project, working with Vice President for Research's office in Microsoft, He got called by Georgia State last week. I mean, people are still saying, oh man, we got some issues. So help us out here. So I will tell you, we are not leading on every front. I will tell you we are significantly behind the curve and the wave on a number of things, but we have made significant strides. So we're starting to get to where we're even, leading in a few areas, and my goal is that will be one of those leading edge, not bleeding edge, but leading edge IT organizations within the next few years.
May I add a short fun one? We're the only major research institution in Kansas that doesn't have more than one learning management system that students have to navigate. For classes at KU and Wichita State, you might have to log into Blackboard and Canvas and, say, a third learning management system, depending on what courses you're taking. So another area in which we do well, as a general statement, is we actually have consolidated student systems, and over the last few years through COVID, used some of this money to bring some of that stuff together so that there is less complexity. Admittedly, there's still plenty of complexity, but that's an area where we compare really favorably to other schools in our region. We just met with Nebraska today as well, who's no longer in the Big 12, but they were super impressed by our classroom technology and how we're managing it currently. And they were like, dang, you guys really solved some problems over COVID that we didn't figure out. So I think we compare really well at the classroom level to a lot of those folks too, although we are clearly deficient sort of at the room scale level.
It's interesting, we had a summer meeting with the Association for Public Land Grant Universities, APLU. Some of you may have heard of that. And I am on an executive committee for the Commission on Information Measurement and Analytics. And that group asked us to present on some of the security-related stuff we're doing. They thought it was so important that they brought it to a larger APLU session with EDUCAUSE there, and EDUCAUSE says, hey, we want to partner with you on doing this. EDUCAUSE is the premier higher ed IT association out there. So yeah, we are leading in some things. It's kind of fun to have them look to us instead of putting us on the wall of shame. So.
Awesome. So I think our time for questions has expired. So with that, thank you both so much for being here. This was definitely extremely informative. So thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. We've invite you to welcome us back sometime in the spring if you'd like, and definitely next year as well. So thank you. Thanks, Zach, for representing us well here. So appreciate it. Thank you all.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Unless there are any further first open period speakers for the evening, we'll go ahead and move into approval of the minutes. So the minutes were distributed on Tuesday along with the agenda and legislation tracking information. Are there any questions or corrections for the minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes? Senator Solomon.
I move to approve the minutes. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the minutes will stand approved, and we'll go ahead and move into our announcements for the evening. So first up, we have, we will not be having Student Senate meeting or committee meetings next week due to Thanksgiving break. You can ignore the upcoming events calendar. That was an oversight on my part. And then our normal announcements, so there's the link to the proxy form there. So if you're going to be absent from Senate, you can fill out the proxy form to be excused. And if you need to be physically absent but still able to attend Zoom, you can fill out still attend Senate, you can fill out the Zoom request form there. And then if you want to give props to someone in Student Senate, you can fill out the Senate shout-out form there. And the SGA member of the week this week is Jacob Hoffman. Jacob currently serves on 3 standing committees and is the vice chair of the Tuition Enhancements Committee, where he's been doing a great job taking extremely extensive minutes. So thank you for all your hard work, Jacob. Like I said, you can ignore the upcoming events calendar, and the quote of the week this week is, the most common way that people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any, and that is by Alice Walker. And for our proxies this week, we have Volgamore for Stout, Carey for Kermer, Bannister for Blood, Cameron for Barron, Long for Rogers, Phillips for Heatherman, Hoffman for Pilchard, Navarro for Talbert, and Nick Saya for Carly Saya. And with that, we'll go ahead and move into our commendations for the evening. So first up, we have Resolution 43. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 43? Senator Gomez.
I move to consider Resolution 43.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 43. If the author will please come forward, or in this case, the patron.
Okay, this
was Resolution 222343, Commendation to Landon Lecturer David M. Beasley. Authors Ibrahim Shipshi and Jack O'Malley. Sponsors Peyton Lynn, Evan Porter. Whereas David M. Beasley was invited to give the prestigious Landon Lecture in the fall of 2022, whereas on November 3rd, a crowd gathered in Forum Hall to listen to David M. Beasley, the Executive Director of the United Nations World Food Program. Whereas in 2021, the World Food Program helped feed more than 128 million people and worked to bring peace and security to troubled regions. Whereas Mr. Beasley won the 2020 Nobel Peace Prize awarded to the World Food Program. Whereas Mr. Beasley gave an inspiring lecture about food security crisis and the steps that Kansas State University can do to make an impact. Whereas in addition to his lecture, Mr. Beasley met with a group of students from the Food Security Scholars Program, and whereas as a vital member of the international community, David M. Beasley should be recognized for his outstanding lecture and time spent at Kansas State University. Be it resolved that the Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends David M. Beasley for his tireless efforts in combating food insecurity and for giving the Landon Lecture. Upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Executive Director of the United Nations World Food Program, David M. Beasley, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Gutierrez, Representative Tracy Mann, and University President Dr. Richard H. Linton.
Awesome. Thanks, Peyton. Are there any questions or corrections? Seeing none, you may take your seat. And is there a motion to approve Resolution 43 unanimously? Chair Long.
I move to approve Resolution 43 unanimously. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 43 unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Resolution 43 will stand approved. And with that, is there a motion to consider Resolution 44? Senator Solomon.
Move to consider Resolution 44.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 44. If the author will please come forward.
All right, this is Resolution 222344, Commendation to Past and Present Student Ambassadors. Authors Brady Kappelman, Kyle Eisland, and Jolianne Griffith. Sponsors Peyton Lynn and Evan Porter. Whereas the Kansas State University, KSU, student ambassadors represent the university to alumni, friends, and prospective students. Whereas the previous student ambassadors, Joshua Diaz de Leon, a senior in elementary education from Liberal, Kansas, and Stasia Mendoza, a senior in finance from Lenexa, Kansas, served from 2021 to 2022. Whereas the recently elected 2022-2023 student ambassadors are Ethan Brown, a junior in marketing from Salina, Kansas, and Ellie Ehlert, a junior in mathematics and secondary education from Beloit, Kansas. And whereas all four students have proven to be effective members of the KSU family and have committed much of their time to representing the student body and the university to their highest ability. Be it resolved that, Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends past and present student ambassadors Joshua Diaz de Leon, Stasia Mendoza, Ethan Brown, and Ellie Ehlert. Upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to past and present student ambassadors Joshua Diaz de Leon, Stasia Mendoza, Ethan Brown, and Ellie Ehlert, Assistant Director of Alumni Programs Alan Frankhauser, President and CEO of the Kansas State University Alumni Association Amy Button Renz, and University President Dr. Richard H. Linton.
Awesome. Thanks, Brady. Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Seeing none, you may take your seat. And with that, is there a motion to approve Resolution 44 unanimously? Intern Coordinator Len.
I move to approve Resolution 44 unanimously.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 44 unanimously. Are there any objections? Caucus Leader Cade.
Sorry, I object because it needs to be an edit to this document.
Okay, what needs to be edited?
Yeah, so Alan Frankhauser. So Alan is A-L-A-N, not A-L-L-E-N.
Perfect.
Sorry.
No, you're good. We will get that. Thank you, Marcus.
Also on line 12, it's Stasia Mendoza, should be spelled correctly without the N.
Ah. Thank you for that one. Okay. Do you withdraw your objection now?
Sure. Yes, sorry.
So unless there are any further objections, Resolution 44 will stand approved. And before we move on, I just want to point out that these two commendations came to us from the interns. That was a little project that they worked on in the intern program, was writing these two pieces of legislation and one that you'll see later in the evening. So if we can give a small round of applause for the interns. And with that, we'll go ahead and move into committee reports for the evening. So are there any committee chairs that would like to give a report tonight? Chair Phillips.
All right, hello everyone. A few things for you tonight. First of all, I know I've been talking a lot about one-time funding, as we heard from IT, but the SGA version of it, I've been talking a lot about that over the past month or so. You will see that legislation later on in Student Senate tonight, so I'll be up here more to talk about that then, but if you have any questions at any point in time about that, please feel free to come and chat with me, and I'd love to talk to you about any of that. Two other things. First, we are currently in the middle of our student activity fee and sports clubs review with the Student Services Fee Committee. The committee's been doing a really nice job and has been really discussing those entities in depth. And so because of that, we are unfortunately a little bit off schedule. So we had hoped to have that legislation to you tonight to be passed before winter break. Unfortunately, we're still doing a little bit of work on our end. So you will expect that after winter break. So be on the lookout there. The final thing that I wanted to talk about was at our last meeting, I know I mentioned that there have been some concerns about CAPS, our Counseling Services Center here on campus. Their funding level is honestly not sustainable to a point to hire enough staff and to pay that staff well enough to stay competitive and to really just support our students. And so because of that, on Monday, the Student Services Fee Committee voted to pull CAPS out of cycle and to review them for this coming year. So what that'll look like on November 28th, so a couple weeks from Monday, the Monday we get back, CAPS will be in the Student Services Fee Committee and will be presenting to us a little bit about their budget situation, and we'll be working with them to kind of help them out there. So you can expect hopefully some legislation before winter break is over to help alleviate some budget difficulties with CAPS. So definitely be on the lookout for that when we return from winter break. And if you're interested in that, please feel free to come stop by the Student Services Fee Committee. So we're really excited about that opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks, Blake. Are there any questions for Chair Phillips? Okay, seeing none, you may take your seat. Are there any further committee chairs that would like to give a report tonight? Chair Thomas.
Hey guys, so I'm the chair of the Tuition Enhancements Committee. Half of what we do is the Educational Opportunity Fund, and we finished up our recommendation on that this past week. So you're going to see that in introduction this week. If you have any clarifying questions, feel free to ask them. But if you have anything that you want to discuss or talk about before we go into debating it after we get back from Thanksgiving break, either come to my committee meeting or come and talk to me about it.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, you can take your seat. Are there any further committee chairs that would like to give a report tonight? Chair Saya.
Click on Nick's email. Click on Nick's email. Oh, and then click on that.
Okay, thanks, Evan. So,
Good evening, everybody. As you know, there are several pieces that will be on the floor tonight from the Strategic Oversight Committee. And over the past week, it's become clear to me that there is a lot of confusion on what it means to vote on any of our legislation. And I wanted to help clarify that and make sure that we were all on the same page for anything that we voted on tonight. So I put together this flow chart to describe our process. Basically, we do research into student interests and student needs, and based on all of that data collection, we set out to create a couple different strategic action plans that might address these issues. Now, those plans do a couple things. They set out the background for a particular issue or topic area. They define basic principles or values that we as an organization believe in, and they set up like a list of ideas or strategies that we might attempt to accomplish that basic value or principle. So right now, we are in the adopt plan phase of this process. Last week in committee, all of these plans that you see on the floor tonight were endorsed by our group of people and sent to the Senate floor. So we introduced them in Senate last week, and now they're finally up for a vote. Basically, after this point, once they've been adopted by this body, it becomes our goal to achieve the objectives and the values that we set out to achieve. We do that by working through the ideas that we've brainstormed. Obviously, not all of them are possible, but it's our goal to explore them as options, to investigate whether or not they might be viable options for students, and basically work through our list of brainstormed ideas until we have a definitive answer on all of them. Once all of that's done, we can come back to you in an attempt to archive our plan and like close the books, basically. But anyway, the pieces of legislation that are on the floor tonight include two different lists that are basically asking for your approval, one on our principles and one on our action steps, our strategies. And the second one specifically has raised a lot of concerns, specifically because the action steps or the strategies contain a pretty diverse list of options and ideas that a lot of people, even if they might agree with one or two, don't agree with the entire list. Also, it's kind of unclear, looking at that list, how much this body is endorsing each option. Certainly in the past, each of these options might be more typical to see in a resolution format, where the argumentation and the research is more articulated and the issue is more isolated for a single debate. So based on all of that feedback, we had conversations about what our committee is supposed to do and what we should be. And the plans that will be actually up for a vote tonight both decided that our vision for the long term is going to look a little bit different than what we had originally presented. So the principles or the values are still going to be up for a vote. Those represent what we see as SGA's official opinion on what is important. So like the mental health plan that I'll talk about later tonight. Let me find it here. It says, for example, that all students at KSU should have awareness of mental health challenges and knowledge of the resources that can address them. We think that's a pretty basic, fundamental principle that SGA as an organization should hold. So we're asking for your approval to hold that value and objective moving forward. What we're not going to be asking for your approval for are the strategies or the action steps. Again, we realized that those were, to a degree, because there were so many different diverse ideas presented, that they may have significant challenges. You may want to endorse some of them and not others. And broadly speaking, these didn't go through the amount of rigor that we wanted to be able to have SGA's stamp of approval on them. So we'll be amending these pieces of legislation to strike those strategies and action steps. What that means is that that SGA as an organization is endorsing the basic principles and values set out by the Strategic Oversight Committee, you as a body are not endorsing the action steps or the strategies. We will still include those as ideas to achieve the principles that we set out. But if we want your approval on a given strategy, then we're going to actually suggest a resolution that makes our argumentation more clear and allows you as the body to focus in on that specific issue and basically not force yourself to negotiate an opinion that you don't want to have. And to make that super clear in our planning documentation that might go to future committees or to administrators, we've drafted a sample purpose statement. Bryce, if you could go to the next slide, which clarifies the difference between our principles and our action steps or strategies. This would be included with every plan document moving forward, and it just makes super clear what is SGA's opinion and what isn't. So I apologize for presenting a different vision than we had last week, but we're trying to respond to people's concerns as we see them, and we think this is really a great solution moving forward. So that's that. I can answer any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Are there any questions or no corrections? Senator Cameron.
Just a quick question. You mentioned, and on the flow chart, it showed that you guys do research, and it focuses on students and individuals. Does anyone on your committee have city training, which is the required ethics and moral training for human subjects and surveying results and qualitative data?
I learned about that just now when you told me, so no.
Okay, I can talk to you later and just ask more questions later. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thanks, Nick. You can take your seat.
Thanks.
With that, are there any further committee chairs that would like to give a report tonight? Pro Tempore Pineda Gomez.
Okay, everybody. So just like Nick was talking about, as part of the Oversight Committee, we conducted a student issues survey this fall. We conducted 2 of them, actually. This was our results from the second one that Brady and I worked on. So to start it off, some demographics as to like who all answered our survey. We had a majority of respondents that were actually freshmen. And then we had sophomores and juniors about equally, and then some seniors and graduate students that also responded to the survey. We also asked questions trying to see if people were transfer students or not. The vast majority of respondents were not transfer students, and those that were transferred here their junior year in the most part. Now, for the first question that we asked students was a question regarding price and value for varying services that students pay for. And so our biggest takeaway was that parking is like the #1 issue on most students' minds, like overwhelmingly #1 issue. Another really big takeaway from this as well is that the rec center especially is extremely valued by students, so that's very good to hear. And I think one more really important thing to note that we didn't write up there was that just like we had somewhat valuable and extremely valuable categories, we also had not valuable and extremely not valuable categories. And thankfully, nobody responded extremely not valuable to any of these services. So that is good as well. And additionally, with that question, we provided a space below for students to answer and comment on their answers if they wish to. That is a word map showing like how often each word popped up on all of those responses, and so you can see parking was once again the most prominent one. But we saw that like online learning platforms, like we heard from tonight as well, those were ranked pretty valuable. by students. One thing that wasn't was textbooks or online resources that were not utilized all the time. And yeah, tutor.
All right, so the second question we asked was kind of focused on accessibility. We asked, how would you describe your ease of access to the following? So some of our big takeaways from this question was that students seem to be moderately to extremely satisfied with almost all of our resources that we offer. One small exception being transportation we found to be somewhat neutral. But all the other ones we were pretty impressed to see had a mostly positive response. So again, like our first question, we also created a word map. It kind of highlights some of the words that were commonly used in the questions. And these were some of the quotes that we picked out from those responses. One thing we made sure we did whenever we did the survey was to try and keep it as short as possible because we wanted to get as many students as we could. So these were optional, so not every student had to fill these out. But some notable parts from this question was a lot of people mentioning just not knowing about certain resources and also asking for longer study spaces or longer hours in study spaces.
Then the third question that we asked was regarding how comfortable students felt in different environments around campus. And again, our big takeaways with this were that for the most part, students feel pretty comfortable in environments. However, the one environment that kind of popped up a few times in the comments especially was campus at night and or bus stops or the parking garage or parking lots. And a lot of these questions came from our women respondents. And so, yeah, we can go to the next slide. And yeah, so we can see here how like women especially felt uncomfortable around certain parts of campus at different times of day or whatnot. And so kind of like the big thing to be thinking about throughout this whole presentation is this is what students are feeling. And so what can we as senators and members of SGA do about that? And so take that for what you will, but this is kind of the feedback that we received for this question.
All right. So this question we asked about campus experience. And again, we did find that most students are really enjoying their experiences on campus, which is a really good thing. Again, one of the things that we did find kind of in the more neutral zone was dorm life, which is pretty hit or miss, as we all probably know.
So a question that we had that was open for students to answer to was asking how they felt about K-State and equity and inclusion. And we received kind of varying responses. They were kind of all across the board. We had some responses that were just saying like, yeah, I think it's fine. I think we're doing all right. And then there were other ones that were being more critical of it in certain ways. And these were just some of the ones that kind of stood out to us that we wanted to provide. I mean, going along with this, if anyone wants access to the full survey results so that you can see every response that was made, you can talk to Nick, Brady, or I, and we can definitely help you run with that. But overall, equity and inclusion at K-State, kind of like a recurring theme that came up was that students see that it's a thing that campus and faculty and administration, and we all try and talk about it, but there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of actual performative action steps that are being taken in this regard, at least not that students are catching on to.
All right, so one of the last questions that we asked on the survey was directed specifically at juniors, seniors, and graduate students. So we asked them how prepared do they feel for life after K-State. And again, we were pretty impressed to see that the majority of students were on the more positive side of things, with the majority being an 8 out of 10. So we were kind of surprised to see this, but it does show that a lot of students are feeling prepared for life after K-State. So kind of to wrap up, We've realized that parking is like our most prominent issue that students are facing. Students are moderately to extremely happy with most resources on campus, notably the rec center, campus buildings, Canvas, and career support. Many students feel comfortable on campus, again with the exception of campus at night and our parking lots and garages. Students overall are generally happy with on-campus life, excluding dorm life, which can sometimes be hit or miss, like we mentioned. And students nearing graduation feel prepared for post-college life. All right.
Yeah, with that, we open ourselves up to questions.
Yeah, Senator Cameron.
For any of the data shown in there, do you have the standard deviation for especially the plots that you have?
We do not. So this was, we made a Google form, and so these were the forms that were just auto-generated from Google, but you know, we could always go more into depth.
Thank you.
Caucus Leader Kidd.
Kind of a follow-up to that. Are the researchers willing to share their data with interested persons for further analysis?
Yeah, absolutely.
Caucus Leader Bellamy.
Yeah, so did you do anything to ensure a representative sample of people, especially like ethnically, people who are in Greek life and not? Was there any sort of variation there?
Yeah, so the main way that we publicized this was Brady and I solicited Greek life houses, and additionally we took flyers to be hung up around various, or I guess rather Nick took flyers to be hung up across various dorms on campus.
And also, to add to that, I also had one of my professors in the business building who teaches a business class that almost every business major has to take. So she did share that with all like 200 some of her students.
Follow-up.
Granted.
Did you ask any like demographic questions on the survey?
What do you mean?
Like, did you ask them to like identify it all, like to ensure a representative sample?
So more than the demographic questions that we shared at the beginning, more than that, I mean, we had one that was asking for like gender identity, and so we had men, women, non-binary, and then an option for people to put in something else. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Caucus Leader Kidd.
So yeah, it looks like there's a lot of great telling data from the survey that was sent out to students. Going back to the beginning though, so what were the charges or like the bigger questions that we wanted to have answered from this survey? Or like what was the onset to like create this survey for people to even fill out?
Yeah, and so the onset for people to fill this survey out was mainly to help the Strategic Oversight Committee kind of gauge interest and like see what students are actually feeling concerned about, what are different areas that we're doing well in, what are different areas that we're maybe not doing so well in. And so we try to do our best to incorporate types of questions that are seen on the campus climate surveys to other such surveys that we saw online, kind of gathering this sort of data of like student happiness. And we try to keep it somewhat to the realm of what SGA could also affect.
Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thanks so much. You can both take your seats. And with that, are there any further committees that would like to give a report tonight? Jeremy, Jaycock. There's a presentation in my inbox. It's pinned at the top. And I'm going to email out the PDF version of the overall report to everybody right now.
We'll give you a second just to make sure you get that. So we have, the way we structured this is there should be page numbers on certain slides to indicate on the report where you can find the information so you can follow along. He's probably ready. Okay, so we're back. We took into account for a lot of, we read all the bills of disapproval, including those that didn't make it through Senate. And so once again, here's our nice title slide, just to remind you who is in fact on this. So just to remind you what our, thank you guys, you can go to the next one. Just to remind you guys what we are here for, in case you forgot. We are here to set and recommend compensation rates for the officers with an SGA. I won't waste too much time because this is going to be a long Senate already. The initial part of the report, starting on the title on the front, is identical, and the background information, the history, and then the previous reports are all contained within the first couple pages of the within the thing that was sent out. On the next slide, to make our lives easier, we put up 3 of the major disapprovals that Senate had, some of their major concerns, and we just figured we'd go by it and address it one by one. There were other concerns that were taken into account. These were probably the 3 most pressing, but as you, you may ask questions if you don't see it or you don't, you want to confirm that we did take into account. We did. We and made sure to talk to each branch to actually gauge not just Senate, but all the branches to make sure that they had a voice. So we're going to start with the survey of participants, which also kind of comes into that inconsistent considerations. Within this report, you'll find that the surveys, to the best of our ability, were sent to everyone, all executive members, all Senate Executive Committee members, and all judicial members and officers. Anyone who received the survey and these officers were considered for compensation, and their recommendations are all provided within this report. This does not necessarily mean that they received any compensation, but they are addressed and recognized. Then there's the transferal position responsibilities, justifying decreases, but not recommending reciprocal increases. What that means is Senate expressed a concern that where some chairs had a decrease in their recommended compensation at the expense of some of the responsibilities going elsewhere, and there was not an increase where those responsibilities were going to. We'll get more into that. We'll kind of break that down a little bit more, but we did take that in consideration, and you will see that taken into account. So these are just kind of the 3 major things. The big point is here, we considered everyone as given in the bill of disapproval, and even in the ones that were tabled, we did read them, and we did take them into account. So thank you. Next slide. Cool. I'm going to let Megan, if she's good, take this away.
Yes, I'm here.
Sweet. Thank you.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Yes. All right, great. So for student body president, we decided to go ahead and decrease from 55% to 50%. The continual trend between administrations has been expansionary for cabinet positions and the role of chief of staff. So the committee has seen this trend through reporting all the way back to the 2019 JCOP report. And with careful consideration, like I said, we recommend that we went from 55% to 50% as some of those duties have decreased.
Next slide.
For chief of staff, due to the vice president losing some of that compensation, because of those shifting responsibilities, it's only fair to increase the compensation of the chief of staff as well. Notably, the number of cabinet members that the chief of staff must manage has increased substantially over the years. In fact, we noted today that just in the last 6 or 7 years, it has gone from 12 members to 20 members, although that is up to the president, vice president, and chief of staff, how many people they want on their cabinet. It has continually increased, so their duties has also increased as well, clarifying and offering the response as an increase in compensation. And if you have specific questions regarding the vice president or the chief of staff and those kind of more duties and what has shifted, please refer to page 9.
And then additionally, we had initially recommended a decrease of 5% to the Speaker Pro Tem's position, from 40% to 35%. However, we changed our minds, and because we had originally thought that the duties of the treasurer had gone somewhere else, but we made a mistake and realized that it had gone here, and so we are keeping this at the same place. And yeah, so there will be no change to the compensation of the Speaker Pro Tempore. And the same thing for the student services fee share, as we had originally delegated that change to this individual. We will no longer be doing that. And so this position will also stay at its historical compensation of 35%.
Alrighty, for the Attorney General, we've decided to increase their compensation from 40% to 45%. This is due to multiple factors going into the Attorney General's position. Originally, when the Deputy Attorney General was created, it was understood that the Attorney General's duties would be split between the two, and that has not held true. So we will be taking 5% from the Deputy Attorney General and moving it to the Attorney General because they go, excuse me, they go through a lot more training than the Deputy Attorney General and end up doing more work. So again, like I said, the Deputy Attorney General will be decreasing by 5% from 30% to 25%, again due to duties.
Here's just kind of an overall on all the changes in the compensation, just by percent. On the report itself, it gives you the kind of like the future plan where these percents are actually put out in numbers. But we figured for all your viewing pleasure, this would be the easiest to kind of see and contextualize in respect to the past. As you can see on the bottom, we did take an account as per one of the bills of disapproval, the positions that were not previously recognized. And while we did not find that they we did not recommend any compensation, we did feel it pertinent and important to have them on here because while we did not feel they should receive compensation, we do view them as an essential and vital part of our Senate and our executive branch that should at least be recognized and acknowledged as officers, like their fellow officers. And to potentially be considered in the future by future JCOCs, so they're not out of sight and out of mind. So I think that's everything. I think that's everything. Yeah.
And then I would also like to remind the members of this body that the amount of funds we have to allocate in JCOC is fixed. So any increase or decrease has to be paid for by another position. There's been some confusion on that in the past from people talking to me. So I just want to clarify that for everyone.
I think we're ready for questions.
Yeah, are there any questions? Chair Saya.
So the one bill of disapproval that did pass the Senate took care to mention that certain positions were like combined together in their explanations of why they received compensation. So like the Senate Operations Chair and the Speaker of the Student Senate are put in the same paragraph, basically, of why they received no change. The bill of disapproval did not appreciate that decision. I was wondering why those positions and other positions were not independently articulated.
So for your viewing pleasure, we decided to put them together because it made more sense. They have basically the similar writing after them. We felt that it was easier to put them together and explain them all in one paragraph rather than separating them. Reading through them, you can tell a difference if there is a difference in some of them. That sums it up.
Yeah, the rationale behind their recommendations are those are identical. In the past, the way we read the bill of disapproval, and we had lumped together some in which that were not sharing identical. Like they didn't share the same rationale, but we still consider them in one giant paragraph. The bill of disapproval we took to remove and separate if they had any differences between their rationale. They were going to be separate. That is why, and there's that one paragraph where it's the chairs, the more recent chairs like Tech that had been put in, share the same exact reasoning as the rest in there because we felt it would be redundant to have 4 or 5 paragraphs just saying, this is new, no new information, and then just move on. This is new, no new information. So to answer your question, we did take that in account to separate the ones that needed to be separated so that intention behind their rationale was not lost. I hope that answers your question.
That does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you all so much. You can take your seats. Thank you. And with that, are there any further committee chairs that would like to give a report tonight? Are there any directors that would like to give a report tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move straight into final action on Bill 57 then, if the author will please come forward. Were any changes made?
No.
You have first rights to debate.
Okay. So this bill was just going over changing the name to the intern program. There are a couple reasons that I wanted to do this. First and foremost, the moniker of intern I just don't think is completely accurate to what interns do and what exactly the program entails. A lot of times at the beginning of the year when I was advertising for the program, I was getting a lot of questions and emails and feedback from students who were looking for internships for their jobs, and they would email me saying, "Is this how I get an internship for a job?" And I would say no. And so it was a lot of back and forth like that that I think could just be cleared up a little bit with a name that I think more accurately reflects what exactly the program is and what the interns themselves do. So as a reminder, this was just a recommendation to change that name to the SGA Emerging Leaders Program, and then interns in Senate would be referred to as mentees. And so I would really encourage you all to vote yes on this bill, just so we can clear up a little bit of that confusion that I've been seeing amongst people who are not in SGA.
Thanks, Peyton. Seeing as that was debate in the positive, we are now seeking debate in the negative. Are there any further speeches in the positive? And are there any further speeches at all? Okay, seeing none, Juan will take it away with a roll call vote.
Okay, Anderson,
Yes.
Bannister,
Yay.
Barron,
Yes.
Bellamy,
Yes.
Blood,
Yay. Oh, by proxy.
Broughton,
Yes.
Brown, Carey,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Coy,
Yes.
DePaz,
Yeah.
Dole,
Yes.
Gromis,
Yes.
Heatherman,
Yes, by proxy.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Hubnig,
Yes.
Kamen,
Yes.
Kappelman,
Yes.
Kirshen,
Yes.
Kidd,
Yes.
Kermer,
Yes by proxy.
Kenzie, Labidi,
Yep.
Long,
Yes.
Middaugh,
Yes.
Morello,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Noretti,
Yep.
Navarro,
Yes.
Lowry,
Yes.
Pelton,
Yes.
Phillips,
Yes.
Pilchard,
Yes, by proxy.
Pondillo,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Sayat Carly,
Yes, by proxy.
Sayat Nick,
Yes.
Salmon,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Schweier,
Yes.
Spindler,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes by proxy.
Strout, Tauber,
Yes, by proxy.
Thomas,
Yes.
Timon,
Yes.
Volgamore,
Yes.
and Wolf. Okay. Bill 57 will pass on a vote of 44 to 0 to 0.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. With that, we'll go ahead and move into Senator Salmon.
Is it being shared now, Bryce? Are you good? Okay.
It was being shared originally. You just couldn't see it was hiding. Anyway, with that, we'll go ahead and move into final action on Bill 58. If the author will please come forward. Have any changes been made?
Yes. So Ethan workshopped some changes to his action steps. I'll get into why that isn't relevant, but he. Oh shoot. Okay. This doesn't include them on this copy, but he basically broke apart one of the action strategies that was talking about a service in addition to CAPS that provides like wellness services, because the Morrison Family Center for Wellbeing already does those services. So he got a little bit more specific on things about that center and things they could be doing better, like offering their wellness class for free and for like incremental basis, cooperating with Riley County Police Department to provide crisis response, and even exploring the potential of faculty being required to complete the Project Waypoint training program, which is like crisis response. That's all.
You have first rights to debate.
Thanks. So that doesn't really matter because this plan, as well as the one that's coming next, scholarship support, will be amended to strike those action items. These action items are not being put up for your approval tonight. The debate should all be about the basic principles that they set out for discussion. So I want to focus my conversation about these objectives and how they can serve our committee in the future with supporting mental health of students. That doesn't mean that Ethan's great ideas won't be included later in the future, or you might see them as resolutions, but they're not the focus of this legislation. So, number one, all students at KSU should have awareness of mental health challenges and knowledge of resources that can address them. I think this value is really important. I think it recognizes that half the battle in mental health resources and services is connecting students with the kind of sources that can help them, and basically preparing them to respond to situations that they are especially unfamiliar with. I think knowledge is important, and if we as an organization recognize this value, I think it can be really helpful in interpreting our conversations around any services moving forward. Second value, all students at KSU deserve no less than the care of the duration and intensity demanded by their needs. I think this value is especially important. Of course, resources have a significant limitation on our ability to provide any services, certainly mental health resources and services. But at the end of the day, people deserve the help that they need. And as an organization, particularly an organization that represents students, I think it's especially important for us to settle for no less than the care that students need. And third and finally, KSU mental health services should be supported as necessary to give all students appropriate care. I think this touches on the similar sort of point that we as an organization and the organizations that we deal with should support mental health services to the degree necessary. I'm really excited to hear about what the Student Services Fee Committee is doing with respect to CAPS and looking for more ways to support them. I think that's fantastic. We can't say that every student deserves the very best in mental health care and not be willing to explore greater ways to support them. So all in all, I think all of these principles are really important and can help guide a lot of our actions in the future. I would encourage you to give them your stamp of approval.
Thanks, Nick. Seeing as that was debate in the positive, we're now seeking speeches in the negative.
I have an amendment.
He has an amendment. Bryce, will you pull up the amendment to the mental health resources plan? Can you explain the amendment?
Of course. So, the amendment strikes all the action steps. That's a good thing because I didn't talk about the action steps, and I would prefer that you did not debate or vote on them. This makes the debate cleaner, simpler.
Is there...
That's all.
Okay, the amendment has been seconded, so since you made the amendment, Nick, you have first rights to debate on the amendment.
Perfect. I have said everything I need to say.
Thanks for that debate in the positive. We're now seeking debate in the negative on the amendment. Are there any further speeches in the positive on the amendment? And are there any further speeches at all on the amendment? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into a hand vote. So all those in favor of adopting the amendment, please raise your placards now. Proxies raised 2. All opposed, same sign. Okay, that amendment will carry. So we'll go ahead and move forward with debate on the new on the legislation as amended. So that is just striking the entirety of Section 3 and renumbering the subsidiary sections accordingly. So seeing as we had debate in the positive, we're now seeking speeches in the negative. Are there any further speeches in the positive on the legislation? And are there any further speeches at all? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into a roll call vote on Bill 58.
Okay, Anderson,
Yes.
Bannister,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes by proxy.
Bellamy,
Yes.
Blood,
Yes by proxy.
Broughton,
Yes.
Brown, Carey, Compton,
Yes.
Coy,
Yes.
DePaz,
Yeah.
Dole,
Yes.
Gromas,
Yes.
Heatherman,
Yes by proxy.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Hubnig,
Yes.
Kamen,
Yes.
Kappelman,
Yes.
Kirshen,
Yes.
Kidd,
Yes.
Kermer,
Yes by proxy.
Kenzie,
Yes.
Labidi,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Middaugh,
Yes.
Morello,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Naretti,
Yes.
Navarro,
Yes.
Oury,
Yes.
Pelton,
Yes.
Phillips,
Yes.
Pilchard,
Yes by proxy.
Pondillo,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Sayat Carly,
Yes by proxy.
Sayat Nick,
Yes.
Salmon,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Schweier,
Yes.
Spindler,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes by proxy.
Strout, Talbert,
Yes by proxy.
Timon,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Volgamore,
Yes.
and Wolf. Okay, Bill 58 will pass on a vote of 45 to 0.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Seeing as that was final action on Bill 58, we'll go ahead and move into final action on Bill 59. If the author will please come forward. Were any changes made?
No.
Your first rights to debate.
Thank you. Both Ethan and Brooke were sick tonight, so it's been a rough week for our committee. Same situation as before. Plan on amending this piece of legislation. I just want to talk about the values. That's what we're asking for SGA's approval for tonight. First, online scholarship assistance portals should be integrated with existing platforms to prioritize clarity, efficiency, and ease of use. I think this is a really great principle. The IT people that were just up here talked about how great our educational platforms are because Canvas is the home for everything that we work on. I think especially when it comes to scholarships, there is a lot of confusing information out there. To the maximum extent possible, we should try to distill and condense everything that we can. Second value, scholarship timelines, including those for outside scholarships, should be widely advertised to current and future K-State students. I think that this adopts a really ambitious stance that we aren't really used to, and that is that K-State should do more to help students who are not yet here at the university win scholarships, especially outside scholarships. I think that's really important. I think that anyone who even is an admitted student at K-State deserves our assistance in bringing in scholarships, especially when that comes to outside scholarships that are not on K-State's dime. As much as we can support people that are future Wildcats, the best it is for everybody. And finally, students should have online and interpersonal resources to support the competitiveness of their scholarship applications. We have a lot of services here at this university that help students with career preparedness and professional development, like the Writing Center and the Career Closet and the Career Center. I think that to the extent that we can help students be more competitive on scholarships, we should look for opportunities to do so. That's all.
Thanks, Nick. Seeing as that was debate in the positive, we're now seeking speeches in the negative.
I have an amendment.
He has an amendment. Bryce, can you pull up the amendment? Can you explain the amendment, Nick?
This is exactly the same as the previous amendment.
Is there a second on the amendment?
Seconded.
Your first rights to debate.
I don't think there's anything more for me to add here.
Thanks, Nick. Seeing as that was debate in the positive, we're now seeking speeches in the negative on the amendment. Are there any further speeches in the positive on the amendment? And are there any further speeches at all? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into a hand vote on the amendment. So all those in favor of adopting the amendment, please raise your placards. Proxies raised 2. All opposed, same sign. Okay, that amendment will carry, and we will move forward with debate on the bill as amended. So seeing as that we had a speech in the positive, we are now seeking speeches in the negative. Are there any further speeches in the positive? And are there any further speeches at all? Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and move into a roll call vote on Bill 59.
Okay, Anderson,
Yes.
Bannister,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes by proxy.
Bellamy,
Yes.
Blood,
Yes by proxy.
Broughton,
Yes.
Brown, Carey, Compton,
Yes.
Coy,
Yes.
DePaz,
Yeah.
Dole,
Yes.
Gromis,
Yes.
Heatherman,
Yes by proxy.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Hubnig,
Yes.
Kemen,
Yes.
Kappelman,
Yes.
Kirshen,
Yes.
Kidd,
Yes.
Kermer,
Yes by proxy.
Kenzie, Labidi,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Midaw,
Yes.
Morello,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Noretti,
Yes.
Navarro,
Yes.
Oury,
Yes.
Pelton,
Yes.
Phillips,
Yes.
Pilchard,
Yes by proxy.
Pondillo,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yeah.
Sayat Carly,
Yes by proxy.
Sayat Nick,
Yes.
Salmon,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Schweier,
Yes.
Spindler,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes by proxy.
Strout, Talbert,
Yes by proxy.
Timon,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Bulgamore,
Yes.
and Wolf. Okay. Bill 59 will pass on a vote of 45 to 0 to 0.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Seeing as that was final action on Bill 59, we'll go ahead and move into final action on Bill 60. If the author will please come forward. Were any changes made?
No.
Your first rights to debate.
Wait, yes. No, not since. Never mind. Anyway, I think Nick set the stage pretty well with the last 2 bills. This is just kind of the third in the row in that area, but so I'll keep it pretty short. So the principles that we're really trying to get across with this bill is that number 1, students across KCU's academic colleges should be given equitable support in pursuit of their education and future opportunities. So that's kind of just saying that there should be like a basic standard for what all students are provided when it comes to educational opportunities. And while there's a huge degree of differences between colleges and what fees people pay and things like that, I just think it's important to reiterate that that's something that we definitely stand for at K-State and as a student senate, that everyone should be given a certain standard of opportunities. And also, this is enumerating the idea that we should have like a clearly defined picture of its courses from enrollment to completion. So it's just increasing transparency for all students when it comes to what classes they're enrolling in, what's going to happen in the classes, what the structure is, syllabi, things like that, what they're paying for before they start and while they're kind of in the thick of it. And then thirdly, resources in support of student academics across KCU's campus should be user-friendly, accessible, and well advertised. So that's just another kind of idea about this transparency. So just really simple stuff that can be done to
make it so that students have a better idea of what they're getting into and can kind of go into the semester better prepared and more ready to take on their courses. So yeah, just kind of some principles about academic support here at K-State. Yeah, so that's about all.
Thanks, Alexa. Seeing as that was debate in the positive, we're now seeking speeches in the negative.
I have an amendment.
She has an amendment. Will you explain the amendment?
Wow, okay, yeah. So it's the same as the last two. It just gets rid of the action steps. You know, I don't necessarily love it, but it seems to be, you know, what needs to be done. So, you know, I think that the principles, they really do hold up. And, you know, there can be a lot of work that can be done just based on the principles alone. So, yeah.
Is there a second on the amendment?
Second.
Okay. You have first rights to debate if you want them.
No.
Okay, thanks for that speech in the positive. We're not seeking speeches in the negative on the amendment. Sit down. Alexa, you can sit down.
Thank you. Awesome.
Yep. Speeches in the negative on the amendment. Any further speeches in the positive? And any further speeches at all on the amendment? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and take a hand vote. So all those in favor of adopting the amendment, raise your placards now. Proxies raised 2. All opposed, same sign. Okay, the amendment will carry, and we'll go ahead and move forward with debate on the legislation as amended. So seeing as we had a speech in the positive, we're now seeking speeches in the negative on the legislation. Are there any further speeches in the positive? And are there any further speeches at all? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into a roll call vote on Bill 60.
Okay. Anderson.
Yes.
Bannister.
Yes.
Barron.
Yes by proxy.
Bellamy.
Yes.
Blood.
Yes by proxy.
Broughton.
Yes.
Brown. Carey.
Yes.
Compton.
Yes.
Coy.
Yes.
DePaz.
Yeah.
Dole.
Yes.
Gromis.
Yes.
Heatherman.
Yes by proxy.
Hoffman.
Yes.
Hubnig.
Yes.
Kamen.
Yes.
Kappelman.
Yes.
Kirshen.
Yeah.
Kidd.
Yes.
Kermer. Kenzie.
Yes.
Labidi.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Middaugh.
Yes.
Morello.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Naretti.
Yes.
Navarro.
Yes.
Oury.
Yes.
Pelton.
Yes.
Phillips.
Yes.
Pilchard.
Yes by proxy.
Pondillo.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Sayat Carly.
Yes by proxy.
Sayat Nick.
Yes.
Salmon.
Yes.
Shear.
Yes.
Schreier.
Yes.
Spindler.
Yes.
Stout.
Yes by proxy.
Strout.
Yes.
Talbert.
Yes by proxy.
Timon.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Bulgamore.
Yes.
And Wolf. Okay. Bill 60 will pass 45 to 0.
Awesome, thanks everybody. Seeing as that was final action on Bill 60, we'll go ahead and move into final action on Bill 61. With the author, please come forward. Were any changes made?
No changes have been made.
Your first rights to debate.
Excellent. So yeah, this is part of our yearly duties of the SAC. We allocated the $65,470 along with $1,000 from reserves. Those reserves can only be used for new clubs or clubs saying national. So in this case, tennis club got $1,000 from that. The two clubs that they didn't get any money, that was because we are unable to fund them due to their association or not association status. And the committee did a really good job. This is well thought out and yeah.
Thanks, Jacob. Seeing as that was debate in the positive, we're now seeking speeches in the negative. Are there any further speeches in the positive? And are there any further speeches at all? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into a roll call vote on Bill 61.
All right, folks. Anderson.
Yeah.
Bannister.
Yes.
Barron.
Yes by proxy.
Bellamy.
Yes.
Blood.
Yes by proxy.
Broughton.
Yeah.
Brown. Carey.
Yes.
Compton.
Yes.
Coy.
Yes.
DePaz.
Yeah.
Dole.
Yes.
Gromis.
Yes.
Heatherman.
Yes, by proxy.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Hubnig,
Yes.
Kemen, Kappelman,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Kidd,
Yes.
Kermer, Kenzie,
Yes.
Labidi,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Middaugh,
Yes.
Morello,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Naretti,
Yes.
Navarro,
Yes.
Lowry,
Yes.
Pelton,
Yes.
Phillips,
Yes.
Pilchard,
Yes, by proxy.
Pondillo,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Sayat Carly,
Yes, by proxy.
Sayat Nick,
Yes.
Salmon,
Yes.
Shear, Schweier,
Yes.
Spindler,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes, by proxy.
Strout,
Yes.
Talbert,
Yes, by proxy.
Timon,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Volgamore,
Yes.
and Wolf. Okay. Bill 61 will pass 46 to 0.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Seeing as that was final action on Bill 61, we'll go ahead and move into final action on Resolution 42. If the author will please come forward. Were any changes made?
Yeah, just the change from Executive Director of Student Wellbeing to Executive Director of Student Health and Wellbeing Services, wherever it's stated.
Perfect. Your first rights to debate.
So this is really just cleaning things up for the Student Health Advisory Committee. Nothing crazy. Yeah, just want to keep it running, keep it working the best and most efficient way that it can.
Thanks, Jess. Seeing as that was debate in the positive, we're now seeking speeches in the negative on Resolution 42. Are there any further speeches in the positive? And is there any further debate at all? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into a hand vote on Resolution 42. So all those in favor, please raise your placards. Proxies raised 2. All opposed, same sign. Resolution 42 will carry. So thanks for that, everybody. And with that, we have exhausted introduction of legislation for the evening. Yep, we've exhausted final action for the evening, and we will go ahead and move into, let me get there. I should know. Introduction of our allocations. So is there a motion to consider the allocations? Chair Long.
I move to introduce the allocations.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider the allocation. So first up, we have Bill 62, the fiscal year 2023 student allocation to the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. They requested $250 and they were recommended $250. Next up, we have Bill 63, which is the fiscal year 2023 student allocation to the Hispanic American Leadership Organization. They requested $12,750 and they recommended $1,000. And then we have Bill 64, the fiscal year 2023 student allocation to On the Spot Improv. They requested $4,500 and they were recommended $1,000. Are there any questions or corrections for the allocations? Chair Phillips.
Yeah, quick question. Just curious what the 250 was requested for within travel, because I know it's kind of an odd number for these type of allocations.
They're just going to Salina, so they don't need that much in. They're requesting it for gas reimbursement and motor pool. It's not that far.
Are there any further questions or corrections for the allocations? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into introduction of legislation. First up, we have Bill 65. Is there a motion to consider Bill 65? Chair Thomas.
She stepped out for a second. The author
She's
stepped
right
out.
there.
I would reconsider Bill 65.
I'll wait until she gets back in the room.
Sorry.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 65. If the author will please come forward.
Hello, Kate. Do we have a friendly amendment?
Does she give her debate on it first, or do I find the amendment first?
I'm sorry, I've never done this before. Right in front of me? That makes it easy.
Long agenda.
Hmm?
Long agenda.
I have Bill 222365, Amendment to the KSU SGA Constitution regarding proxy votes in Student Senate. Authors are Carson Cuesta, Jay Glassclock, and Samantha Sushanik. Sponsors Peyton Lynn, Evan Porter. Whereas Phase 2 interns in the Kansas State University Governing Association are sworn-in members of the organization with Student Senate speaking rights, whereas many interns serve as at-large members on several KSU committees and have been granted voting rights within these committees, whereas KSU SGA interns are active members of KSU SGA, whereas allowing Phase 2 interns to serve as proxies would give them valuable experience on the floor of Student Senate, whereas senators are often absent from KSU SGA Student Senate meetings, whereas within the last Senate term, some senators have had difficulty finding proxies, especially on late notice, and whereas Phase 2 interns have expressed an interest and shown a willingness to be active in KSU SGA legislative branch. Be it enacted that Section 1, Article 5, Section 504G of the Kansas State University Governing Association Constitution should be amended to read as follows. A senator may appoint another student senator or Phase 2 intern as a proxy voter for a meeting providing that absence has been excused by the Speaker of the Student Senate. A student senator or Phase 2 intern may carry only one proxy. Section 2, this legislation shall take effect upon the passage of the Student Senate, signature of the student body president, and ratification by the college and school councils.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Cox Leader Kidd.
Yes. Never mind. I can't answer my own question. Sorry. Never mind.
Are there any further questions or corrections for the author? Did you have a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Can you state the amendment?
Okay, sorry. We submitted one and then made changes afterwards. So we changed this area where it says that student senators are often absent, whereas now it just says student senators are occasionally absent. And within the last Senate term, some senators have had difficulty finding proxies, especially on late notice. Whereas student senators should select proxies who they trust to cast their vote on their behalf. Whereas allowing student senators to select Phase 2 interns as proxies benefits interns and senators alike. Yes.
Cox Leader Kidd.
So I have my question again. So since we just passed legislation regarding the name of the now Emerging Leaders Program, does that language need to be reflected in all other future documents? Or how does that work to how we reference it?
Yeah, we will send this back to the Senate Operations. I will refer this to the Senate Operations Committee, and those changes will be made there.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thanks so much, Sam. You can take your seat. And with that, we will go ahead and move into introduction on Bill 66, if there is a motion to consider Bill 66. Senator Kamen.
I move to consider Bill 66.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 66. If the author will please come forward.
What's pop? So we are introducing the sustainability plan. So it's whereas the Kansas State University Student Government Association is obligated to advocate on behalf of the KSU student body, whereas the KSU SGA Strategic Oversight Committee, per Article 4, Section 11, so much, of the KSU SGA bylaws is empowered to open and maintain strategic plans of long-term KSU SGA objectives. Whereas KSU holds in its core mission responsible stewardship of the land. Whereas whereas KSU should be a role model in waste management, green technology, sustainability, practice, and positive partnerships, and whereas great care towards the environment ought to be a long-term objective. Be enacted that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Government Association shall establish a sustainability plan. Sections 2, the sustainability plan shall enumerate the following principles. Kansas State University shall pursue all possible opportunities to reduce waste for students and all and off campus. KSU should seek to advocate and adopt environmentally proactive technologies and practices. And Kansas State University should engage in partnerships that support its mission of stewardship and sustainability. In Section 3, to achieve these goals, the scholarship, that's a typo. It actually should be sustainability plan shall enumerate the following strategies. So number 1, KSU should offer a campus-based recycling exchange compensation program. Number 2, KSU should establish designated drop zones for recyclables throughout the community. And KSU should partner with the City of Manhattan to establish regular community service waste cleanup events. And number 4 is KSU University should establish a baseline of certification for all new campus buildings. And number 5, KSU should establish a time frame for the modernization of its electric supply within eventual goals of 100% renewable sources. Number 6, KSU should establish a time frame for the modernization of its motor fleet with an eventual goal of 100% electric vehicles. 7, KSU should adopt environmental and sustainability guidelines for its corporate partnerships. Number 8, the K-State Foundation should adopt and publicize sustainability performance metrics for its endowment portfolio. Number 9, the K-State Foundation should support the installation of solar panels on Hale Library. And Section 4, the Strategic Oversight Committee shall, within its means, take action to achieve these strategies. In Section 5 of the legislation should take effect upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Senator Hubenig.
So I haven't checked up on this in a while because I honestly gave up. But the recycling center on campus is supposed to be open between like 5 a.m. and 1 p.m. on weekdays. Last year was consistently closed. I don't know if that's still the case, but if that is still the case, how are we going to achieve these options if our campus recycling program is not going to be open itself?
See, and that's where I think that if we support this, I think we would have some kind of, I guess, support to have that open, because I've struggled with that. I'd have to walk across the field and just literally put it in there, like with just a handful of just supplies. And I think just having this and being able to have this type of support will allow them to be open longer or see what's the issue for them being closed right at towards like 1.
Are there any further questions or corrections? Senator Spindler.
Can you define the modernization of our electric supply for me, please? Because I'm getting I'm getting like some mixed feelings about it. So can you just like kind of define what your ideas are to modernize it, if you will?
Are you talking about the
number 5 on Section 3 where it says KSU should establish a time frame for the modernization of its electric supply to an eventual goal of 100% renewable sources? Can you kind of define how that's going to look, or that's kind of how you think it's going to look?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so this is just kind of having a baseline in terms of like, you know how we put on Hale Library have solar panels. We want to make sure that this is not just in Hale Library. We want to make sure that this is going to be all over campus. We want to make sure that we have renewable energy all around campus, not just in one specific area or specific buildings. We want to make sure to have each building practices these safe, or I mean, not safe, but renewable energy and just environmentally friendly.
Chair Phillips.
Yeah, so I know that we slashed the action steps on all the other pieces of legislation tonight. Is that the intent with this piece of legislation once it goes back to committee?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Senator Kamen.
What is I don't know if you know this, but what is the state of our current electric supply? Like, do you know if it comes from coal, fossil fuel, gas, hydroelectric, so on and so forth? You know what the large majority of our power comes from?
That's a great question.
Will looks like he knows.
You can go on Westar Energy's you go on Evergy's website and they have the Mixter power supply up there.
Derek, do you know what the campus power plant uses?
It just comes in from the feed from Jeffries mostly. Close, well, I mean, it's wherever we get the feeds from. It's flowing east and west.
Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thanks so much. You can take your seat. And with that, is there a motion to consider Resolution 45? Senator Salmon.
Move to consider resolution 45. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 45. If the author will please come forward. Intern Coordinator Lynn.
I move to allow the author to summarize.
It's been moved and seconded to allow the author to summarize. Are there any objections? Seeing none, you can summarize.
I'll take it. I appreciate that. So this is what I was talking about at the beginning of our meeting today. So Resolution 22-2345, allocation of student general surplus funds for budget relief, authored by me, sponsors, the Student Services Fee Committee, Evan Porter, and Parker Volgamore. So these whereas clauses outline essentially that, over the past 3 years, we've had to make some pretty significant cuts to our entities on the student services fee to better align our budget with the revenue that we take in. And so by doing that, we've had to make some pretty serious budget cuts. And unfortunately, in some places, we went too far. And so when looking at our general surplus funds that we had available, Parker, myself, and Evan identified that we had some room to make some targeted investments in our student services here on campus. We actually, I say we, KSU SGA had the chance to meet with the Kansas Board of Regents today, and we talked a lot about these targeted investments that we're making here on campus, and they walked away very impressed, I would say. So very big shout out to you all for the work that we do on campus. I know that the higher powers that be recognize that. So really appreciate that. But on our end, we identified some particular concerns with our big three being Lafine, the Union, and the Rec, including CAPS in Lafine as well as some different areas that could really use some support on campus. So we essentially opened up an RFP process requesting for proposals from those entities, asking them what their biggest needs are so that we can help supplement their operating budget and allow them some relief. So through that process, we identified some of these things that we want to fund. So I'll just very briefly go through these. The Union, they have a couple of HVAC units that need replacing, and so we wanted to replace those. Bowling Lane oil machine. The Big 12 room needs some AV upgrades. Really cool room. If you haven't been up there, definitely go check it out. Student design services needed some computers replaced. Those were specifically put off due to some of the budget cuts last year, as well as some Union staff a desktop computer replacement. You'll find that every entity requested computer replacement, which number one is a fantastic use of one-time funds because those are things that just need to be replaced, and it's something that helps alleviate some of their operating budget. But number two, it's very timely because I believe it's October 24th, October 14th, somewhere in there in 2025, Windows 10 is going end of life. And so our university will have to upgrade all of our computers by that point in time in order to remain current. So this is very timely to get a lot of those computers replaced with some of those funds. I know, very, very big loss for the Windows community out there. Finally, on that, the Union also requested a maintenance pickup truck, and so that was $424,500 going to the Union. Scrolling down to Lafine, this is why you'll see in here that CAPS requested funding, but we unfortunately decided not to fund any of those requests out of our one-time funding because those were all salary-based, and we weren't comfortable using one-time funds to fund salaries that need to be funded year over year, and that's why I told you earlier today that we are reviewing CAPS and making changes to their baseline operational budget to kind of bake in those changes. So Lafine, you can see that float position. This is a 2-year term position, so this position is only needed for 2 years, and the person in that position understands that it will only be a position for 2 years. So that's why we were comfortable funding that position. As same thing for this graduate assistant down below. Several different machines that Lafine requested. All of those will help with speed on a lot lot of those test results. It'll cut out some of that third-party Quest Diagnostics labs, for example, that you have to send some tests to. So really helps out Lafine in both their speed and insurance claim process. So that'll be awesome. Toughbooks and desktop replacement are also funds that they requested, and so that total is $565,400. Finally, on the rec, their classroom, 138, and conference room were in desperate need of some IT upgrades, so $25,000 for that. Some of those desktops as well. Fusion membership, that is helping store their data off-site, like we heard from IT. A lot of the data used to be stored at Hale. The university's really encouraging storing data off-site now because of that, and so we were comfortable funding their membership for a couple of years for that. $200,000 worth of strength equipment, which will be really cool to see if you all well, I'm a senior, so I won't really see it. But in the coming years, let me know how that goes. And then finally, a floor burnisher as well. So that total, and this is actually a friendly amendment that I need to make on line 126, that total adds up to that number on the right, $1,292,900, not that $200 on the left. So yes. Basically, these other sections are kind of the fine print on this, a couple things that I'll hit on. We just require that the money that we allocate be used on the projects that we say that we're going to allocate them. We also understand that these numbers above were all estimates, and so we know, for example, strength equipment isn't going to come out to exactly $200,000 and 0 cents. So it's okay to go above and below each of those, but the total that each entity gets has to remain the same. They can't go over that. So allows a little bit of flexibility there. Once they expense any of these, they shall submit receipts to the person in my future position, and then any money not utilized by the end of fiscal year 2024 shall be transferred back to our general surplus account. And then basically, if this agreement is broken, if an entity is using funds on things that they shouldn't be, we reserve the right to cancel the agreement. And then the resolution shall be sent to, basically, this is just the entity director for each entity listed, accounting people, audit people, and administrators. With that, I will open it up to any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Blake. Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Intern Coordinator Lynn.
I know we've talked a lot in this group about the abatement in the union ballroom. Could you just speak to maybe why that wasn't one of the things that was on this list?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a request that the union made. And so when I met with the union, that is, a big concern for the union. Our ballroom, if you've been up there, certainly is not our nicest facility here on campus. But in order to upgrade that room, asbestos abatement has to happen first. It is, again, not a danger right now. Just when disturbed, if you get up there and start banging things, that is when there is a potential hazard. And so that was something that the union identified when we talked in our, I don't even know what we call the group, but it's myself, Evan, Parker, and then the Vice President for Administration and Finance, Ethan Erickson, Fran Wilbrandt, I forget her official title, but it's listed in here. Sorry, Fran.
Assistant Vice President for the Division of Financial Services?
There we go. Thank you, Evan.
Or maybe for just financial services.
Yeah, Dr. Lane is in that group, as well as Jen, our Student Services Fee Advisor. When we talked about that, we actually had it listed on our internal documents as talk to Ethan. And so when we talked to Ethan, he mentioned that he would work with the union to essentially secure a loan from the university where the union will be able to do that repair soon and then pay the university back over time. So because that issue is being addressed in that way, we felt comfortable spending our funds elsewhere, knowing that the problem would be fixed soon.
I have a question, Blake.
Yeah.
Why does the union have to take a loan from the institution rather than just getting the money from them for free?
That is a good question because nothing is free. I don't. What are you
Is it
looking for?
because the union is a corporation?
Yes, that's where you're going with that. Okay, cool. Yeah, so the union, as you may know, is a separate entity from K-State. It's private, which is cool in some ways. In some ways, it is less cool. And so that is kind of the reason why they have to essentially get a loan from the university. It's a very friendly loan. And so it's, yeah, I don't know the exact details of that, but that's the basis.
Are there any further questions? Caucus Leader Kidd.
Slight or friendly correction for section 7, line 153. Yes, 153. It was just reference that Fran Wilbrandt's the assistant vice president, but this says association vice president.
Oh.
Can that be updated, please?
Thank you for that.
Are there any further questions or corrections? Okay, seeing none, thanks so much, Blake. You can take your seat. And with that, is there a motion to consider Resolution 46? Senator Kamen.
A motion to consider resolution 46.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 46. If the author will please come forward.
This is Resolution 2346, appeal to Kansas State University for the creation of accessible infrastructure improvement plans. Authors Maddie Carey, sponsors Jessica Binkley, Brady Kappelman, Brandon Kermer, Ethan Pilchard, Nick Saya, and Bentley Talbert. Whereas Kansas State University has an important responsibility to its students, faculty, and staff to provide an equitable and inclusive experience on campus. Whereas a major part of this experience involves accessibility to all buildings and campus spaces. Whereas because of their historic nature, many buildings on campus do not accommodate these needs, nor are they modified to provide equitable access for all students, faculty, and staff. Whereas the 2012 Campus Master Plan states the intent to follow Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA compliance, and universal design principles for all new buildings, but does not give a specific timeline for the implementation of accessibility aids to existing buildings. Whereas ADA compliance gaps have an unacceptable impact on students, faculty, and staff who require these accommodations, and whereas students, faculty, and staff deserve a concrete promise of solutions to address accessibility problems. Be it resolved that Section 1, Kansas State University should develop a publicly available schedule for the implementation of ramps, elevators, automatic doors, and other necessary accessibility aids where necessary for all buildings on campus. Section 2, KSU should assess existing accessibility aids to determine if improvements are necessary. Section 3, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Executive Planning Director and University Architect Ben Perry, Associate Vice President for Facilities Casey Lauer, Vice President for Administration and Finance Ethan Erickson, Student Access Center Director Dr. Jason Maceberg Tomlinson, Dean of the College of Architecture, Planning and Design Timothy DeNoble, and University President Dr. Richard H. Linton.
Awesome. Thanks, Maddie. Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Senator Kamen.
I think I have a correction on line 1. An appeal to Kansas State University.
I saw the I.
Yeah, there's an I at the right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any further questions or corrections? Intern Phillips.
Correction on line 43, it says and instead of and. Missing a D there. In front of, yeah, in front of university president.
Thank you. Are there any further questions or corrections? Okay, seeing none, thanks so much, Maddie. You can take your seat. And with that, is there a motion to consider Resolution 47? Senator Kamen.
I move to consider resolution 47.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to consider Resolution 47. If the author will please come forward.
Evan, you do have someone with a motion. You have someone with a motion.
Senator Kamen.
A motion to allow the author to summarize.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to allow the author to summarize. Are there any objections? Seeing none, you may summarize.
Awesome. Like I mentioned in my my committee report, we came up with our initial recommendation for the Educational Opportunity Fund. You can look through it. If you have any sort of question or correction, please feel free to come to my committee meeting when it's referred back to us. I'm going to walk you through a couple of them. So, like with most things, we had more requested than we had to fund. There were 5 entities that did not end up getting funded in full. The first one on that list is the Couple and Family Therapy Scholarships. We funded them 7 of their 10 scholarships. We didn't know, they didn't really have numbers on how many people would qualify for this scholarship. And it's also a brand new scholarship they were requesting, so we decided to pilot it by funding 7 of the 10. The second one, the next one down is line 76. They requested scholarships for international students and an international GA in the Leadership Studies building. We did not fund their GA position because they already have 9-month positions funded for all 7 of their GAs. And so they were looking for a 12-month position, but since they already have funding for the 9-month, we didn't end up funding that GA position. On the physics diversity scholarships, we funded half of the proposed amount. Once again, it's a brand new scholarship, and we're not quite sure how many people they would have that would qualify. So we're piloting the scholarship program to see how many applicants they get to potentially give them more funding in the future. For 23, 24, and 25, these are the only things that didn't receive any funding. For these proposals specifically, there were a couple of issues with our guidelines, and both Dr. Thomas Lane and Amy Lee, our academic advisors, told us that they were things that we probably could not fund within the scope of our committee. And we back up on line 50, the third proposal, we funded $85,950 of the $100,000 requested. They haven't spent their money, all of their money, in the past couple of years, and they're not at full staffing capacity, so they can't spend all of the money that they were requesting. So we didn't fund them quite what they requested.
Awesome, thanks, Kate. Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Chair Phillips.
I could be wrong here, but the font seems kind of wonky.
The font is funky. I'll fix it. Are there any further questions or corrections? Senator Kamen.
Question of privilege. Does NA have a slash in it?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, thank you.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. Are there any further questions or corrections? Chair Phillips.
Actually, just a correction to be made later. Can we include the EOF reserve account number? I don't know if that's been included in the past, but I know that's something we're trying to do.
Where do we need it?
Section 3, line 117.
We will add it. Thanks, Blake. Caucus Leader Kidd.
Question regarding the formatting. So under what conditions do we use every single line versus under what conditions are we allowed to skip lines? Just curious.
I think we skipped the lines just to make it easier for Amy to read.
Okay.
It can sometimes be tricky to track numbers across when there's that much text. Any further questions or corrections?
That was actually a change that Amy made when I brought it to her.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Seeing none, you may take your seat, Kate. And with that, is there a motion to consider Resolution 48? Senator Kamen.
Move to consider Resolution 48. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 48. If the author will please come forward.
All right, this is Resolution 2223, recommendation to the Kansas State University regarding trigger warnings. Authors me and Stasia Mendoza. Sponsors Alexa Shear, shout out her, love her. Okay, continuing. Whereas in each academic student's time at Kansas State University, they will face and/or hear sensitive topics. Whereas some of these topics may include but are not limited to trigger warning, sexual abuse, self-harm, violence, death, eating disorders, flashing images, and loud sounds. Whereas some of these triggers may open prior wounds of anxiety, PTSD, and/or mental health, etc. And whereas Kansas State University should implement the idea of encouraging faculty to make students aware of these topics prior to students' consumption of knowledge, be resolved that Section 1, Kansas State University, KSU, Student Governing Association implores KSU to encourage professors to enable and incorporate the enactment of trigger warnings. Section 2, get ready for it, a lot of names. Upon passage by the Student Senate and the signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Dean of Architecture, Dr. Ernie Mitten, Dean of Architecture, Agriculture, so sorry, it's late. Dean of Architecture, Tim D. Noble, Interim Dean of Arts and Sciences, Chris Culbertson, Dean of Business Administration, Kevin Gwinner, Dean of Education, Debbie Mercer, Dean of Engineering, Matt O'Keefe, Dean of the Graduate School, Claudia Petrusu. Thank you. Dean of Health and Human Sciences, Craig Harms, Dean of Veterinary Medicine, Bonnie Rush, Dean of Student Life, Dr. Thomas Lane, and University President, Dr. Richard H. Linton.
Thanks, Joseph. Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Marcus, before you say it, I'm going to put the doctors on the deans. Is that what you were thinking there?
I mean, that it needs it, but no.
Okay, go ahead.
So 3 changes. One is line 29. So instead of Matt, I think we should include his full name, Matthew, as referenced on the engineering website. Number 2, for line 30, 29 and 30, the Dean of Health and Human Sciences, that should be interim dean, correct arms. And then line 31 needs to be the full title for Dr. Lane. Unless
Vice President for Student Life.
He's the Dean of Students.
Dean of Students.
Vice President of Student Life.
Baby, this was just off the list. Don't know if it's accurate or not.
Follow up?
And then there should be a period at the end of Lynn, right?
Yep.
Line 31.
Intern Phillips.
Would this trigger warning also include activities such as plays or dance recitals? Because I remember there being like harsh strobe lights during that with no warning.
Yeah, like essentially this is for like this to be sent to like deans, and then they can therefore decide what needs to be incorporated. So for example, arts and sciences, probably a lot of triggers, but college of business, very few. So yes, it's more for like the deans to consume and to like spread out from there.
Senator Hubenik.
To follow up, so you mean that when you send this to the deans or intern deans, that you're going to want them to see, when you ask them to implore people to use trigger warnings, and then like what the following step should be, will then be dependent on what the deans think?
This is what it states. Yes, I'm currently talking to like Stasia, Academic Affairs Director, and like incorporating more like steps of like direct steps to which like should be universal. But I feel as if the position is to the deans to decide what's best for them and like students in their area. Did I answer your question?
Kind of does, but it begs more.
Go for it. Oh, because you can do that.
Yeah, Chair Phillips.
Yeah, correction on line 27. For Dean Winter at the College of Business, it should be the Edgerly family. Is a named dean position.
I did not know that. Good to know. Caucus Leader Kidd.
So I forgot this before, but on line 31, right after Dr. Lane should be and University President Dr. Richard H. Linton. Can't talk today. And then also on line 26, 27, it needs to be the full architecture, planning, and design for Dr. Tim Denoble.
Got it. Thank you. Are there any further questions or corrections? Okay, seeing none, thanks so much, Joseph. You can take your seat. And with that, we have exhausted our legislative agenda for the night, so we will go ahead and move into our second open period. Are there any second open period speakers this evening? Caucus Leader Navarro.
Hello. I just want to talk to you all about cats. If you want a cat, or if you're interested in getting a cat, there's a story that really touched me. I work for Heart of America Humane Society, and they were talking about an 89-year-old woman with dementia that's not able to take care of her cats anymore. So if you're from the KCK area or around the KCK area, contact me. These cats are from 5 to 10 years old, indoor and outdoor cats. So if you want one on a leash, you can have that. Or if you want one to wake you up every day at 6 a.m., you can have that as well. So yeah, just contact me. I know we're all coming back for Thanksgiving, so tell your relatives if they're looking for any pets or anything. You know, get one of these cats because they need a home. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none. Are there any further second open period speakers this evening? Chair Long.
I have a fun SAC fact. I shared with some of you, but I was going through the numbers and looking at our allocations, and we have spent, of the money we've spent, 17% of the money SAC has allocated this year has been for trains, which is a dramatic increase. From last year. I'm not entirely sure why train travel's up this year, but entirely to Chicago, obviously. Amtrak's making a lot of money off K-State students, or at least $5,000. But yeah, trains are up.
Are there any questions for Chair Long?
Didn't think so.
Thanks, Jacob. Are there any further second open period speakers this evening? Chair Phillips.
All right, hello everyone. I just wanted to give a quick, I don't even know what you would call this, like informational speech. Something that we read in introduction this week is Bill 65, which allows proxy voting in Student Senate for Phase 2 interns. This is something that my sophomore year, right at the end of 2021, we debated on for quite a while in Student Senate. And so I just wanted to let you all know that this debate has happened before. And because of that, if you want to go back on our YouTube and just check out, it's not on the YouTube. It's on.
I think it's one of those.
It's the broken video.
I'm on it right now. Well, so if this is something that you're interested in, just learning what other people had to say in the past, I would really encourage you to go check it out. Number one, if you didn't know we have a YouTube channel, we do. We live stream every Student Senate on there as well. So shout out YouTube. I think there's one person live right now, but so that's a thing.
We have one concurrent viewer. Hello to our concurrent viewer.
So with that, the specific YouTube, what you have to do to find any previous Student Senates, I redid all of our YouTube channel last year because it was a mess before, and hopefully it's a little bit less of a mess now. Everything is stored in playlists, and so if you go to the 2020 to 2021 Student Senate playlist, this meeting was actually in 2 parts because we were in the business building at the time because of COVID. The business building closes at 10. Well, we had a long Student Senate that night, and we had to leave, and about half of us went to the College of Engineering, and the other half went home. And so it was kind of a mess, but it was really fun. One of the most memorable Student Senates. But this specific debate is in part 1 of the March 18th, 2021 Student Senate, and that debate starts right after the 2-hour mark on the video, just after that, and it concludes right before the 3-hour mark on the video. So definitely don't go back and watch all of it. Even I have, but I probably wouldn't encourage that. But if you are interested in any of those arguments that have been made in the past, I certainly encourage you to go check that out or talk to myself, Marcus, anyone else who was there as well at that point in time. So yeah, just figured I would share that because it's not super common that we will have debates on things that are issues that we have also talked about in the past. So yeah.
Peyton, are you finding it?
What date?
March 18th, 2021 AD.
That will be in the minutes as well.
Or CE.
That is also correct.
Peyton, if you can't find it, it might be like private on the YouTube or something.
I can't find it.
Okay, I'll take a look at it later.
Cool.
Anyway, are there any questions for Blake? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much. You can take your seat. Are there any further second open period speakers this evening? Caucus Leader Kidd.
All right, I'll be super brief. I know we want to get out of here for fall break. But as we know, I'm on UACC, so that's the University Academic Calendar Committee. I came up here a few weeks ago just to kind of introduce my role in that committee, just share a few things of our first meeting. So we had another meeting today. One thing that we may remember from the last time I gave an update to the group is that I'm on the new working group to discuss the 10-week summer option for classes. But I did not do the basic thing of asking how many of us in here have taken a summer class before. So if you've taken a summer class, raise your hand really fast. Just helpful for me to know for context. Perfect. I love summer classes. They were the best thing to me. But one thing that we talked about, Dr. Jackson's gone now, but to reiterate, K-State for the longest time for 12-week courses the courses have bled into the beginning part of August. That's a bigger deal for when we talk about things like financial aid. And so K-State's now moving to go to that 10-week process or 10-week course length. We're now peer reviewing a lot of our comparable institutions. And so it looks like a lot of our institutions are just cutting off right at the very end of July, so like right before August. And so, small update, I did get some really good feedback from some out-of-state or out-of-country students. Last time I gave an update, I've not yet had a chance to update the committee on that, as in we haven't had another official meeting since then. But either way, those changes wouldn't go into effect until like 2025 anyway. But if you have any more feedback, though, on the university calendar, the academic calendar that we all follow for exams, holidays, everything, again, please let me know. I'm a good outlet for you to get to those people that are on that committee. So, are there any questions?
Yeah, are there any questions?
Didn't think so.
Okay, seeing none. Thanks, Marcus. Are there any further second open period speakers this evening? Vice Chair Hoffman.
Want to give a shout out. KSU women's basketball is currently a very close race behind the number 4 seed Iowa Hawkeyes. So shout out to them. Let's get some. Let's go, KSU. You know.
Thanks, Jacob. Are there any further second open period speakers this evening? Okay, seeing none, Juan will take it away with Senate shoutouts.
Shout out to the Peyton. P.S. I love your sweater. Shout out to me, open parenthesis, Juan Pineda Gomez, close parenthesis, for no reason, I just feel like it. Shout out to Jacob Hoffman. Good job winning SGA Senator of the Week. Your effort is recognized. Nick Saya's flowchart made my heart explode. Oh, whoa. Shout out to the interns for writing their first pieces of legislation. I'm so proud of you all. Shout out to Nick having amendments. Shout out to K-State basketball beating UMKC. Shout out to Sam. They definitely expanded on your name right here. For tearing it up on the SGA floor. Shout out to intern, parenthesis, mentee, question mark, to Chanik for her outstanding work in SGA. You've done a fantastic job in Student Senate and in the Student Services Fee Committee. Thank you for your hard work this year. Shout out to intern Sue Chanik for killing it on the podium. Don't feel bad when you throw things away. Not reading the rest of that one. Can we write a piece of legislation saying K-State for no reason can ever use Ticketmaster? From a heartbroken Swiftie. Shout out to Blake's It's Not Dangerous Yet strategy, Phillips for President 2040. Evan, I have 2 comments for you. First, we need a rap track update. Second, when you make it big rapping, please never use Ticketmaster. Shout out to Andrew and his cats. Shout out to Andrew. Shout out to Andrew. Shout out to the cat lady, but also cry. Shout out to trains. SAC is sponsored by Amtrak, confirmed. Hello from your one viewer. W women's basketball. L to Iowa. Hawks down. Shout out to Elon Musk for losing over 70% of his Twitter workforce in 3 weeks. Shout out to the women's basketball team for being competitive against number 4 Iowa. I mean, Hawks down.
Hawks down.
All right, and that's it, everybody.
Awesome, thanks everybody. With that, I'll go ahead and do reference of legislation for the evening. So going to the Senate Operations Committee, we have Bill 65. Going to the Student Oversight, the Strategic Oversight Committee, we have Bill 66 and Resolution 46. Going to the Student Services Fee Committee, we have Resolution 45. Going to the Tuition Enhancements Committee, we have Resolution 47. And going to the Senate Executive Committee, we have Resolution 48. And with that, we'll go ahead and go into our second roll call. Bills 62 through 64 will be going to the Student Allocations Committee. Chair Phillips.
Which ones did you say went to SSF?
Just Resolution 45.
Oh.
Second roll call.
Second roll call. Anderson.
Here.
Bannister. Bellamy.
Here.
Broughton.
Yeah.
Brown. Carey. Compton. Coy. DePaz. DePaz. Dole.
Here.
Gromas.
Here.
Hoffman.
Here.
Hubnik. Kemen. Kappelman.
Here.
Kirshen.
Here.
Kidd.
Here.
Kenzie. Labidi,
Here.
Long,
Here.
Middall,
Here.
Morello,
Here.
Murphy, Naretti,
Here.
Navarro,
Here.
Oury,
Here.
Pelton,
Here.
Phillips,
Here.
Pondillo,
Here.
Rogers,
Here.
Sayat Nick,
Here.
Salmon,
Here.
Shear,
Here.
Schweier,
Here.
Spindler,
Charlie Kinsey's here.
Stroud,
Here.
Timon, Thomas,
Here.
Vogelmore,
Here.
and Wolf. All right, thanks everyone. Have a good fall break.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. With that, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn. Senator Hubenig.
I motion to adjourn this meeting until December 1st in this room at 7 p.m.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn until December 1st in this room at 7 p.m. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we will stand adjourned at 9:35 p.m. Everyone have a great fall break.
An excellent over under tonight.